Hello, everybody. Welcome to Astrological Coffee Talk with Eric. Actually, don't have tea or coffee this morning, but I did have a smoothie. So God is good. I can't complain. So welcome, and this is really a powerful coffee talk because Jupiter does switch signs, once a year. It's like 11.8 months, the transit, but we have just had it exalted in Cancer for the past year. And on June 30th, it will be entering Leo the Lion, where it actually does fairly well. Jupiter tends to do well pretty much everywhere. And oddly enough, even in the negative aspects or the hard aspects, which are oppositions and squares, it's not so harsh. Okay, that's because Jupiter is the great benefic, and it's about abundance and expansion and so many other things. So we'll kind of get to the chart and explain everything. We're looking at this from actually New York, New York, and it is early in the morning. I think it was 1:50 something in the morning, and it's on June 30th. Okay. So this is the general chart. We'll look at this first and then zoom in. Obviously, the Taurus rising, and then we'll go around and end with Aries rising. We'll go to Gemini and so on. Um, the Taurus rising, the chart ruler Venus is in Leo, okay, with the Jupiter. They're not in a conjunction though. We do have the major aspects of Chiron just entering on Juneteenth, June 19th, squaring the Jupiter and Leo. We have the trine to Neptune and Aries, which just had moved to 4 degrees. And we've got the Pluto in Aquarius at 4 degrees in the opposition, right? It's a Capricorn moon and a Cancer sun. And just so you guys know, the full moon is just hours before, about 5 hours before on the 29th. Okay. And it's such a loaded and we also on the 29th have the Mercury retrograde. So that's another thing that's going on in Cancer. If you remember, the retrogrades this year are all in water signs. We experienced the Pisces already, and then we have the Cancer starting on the 29th of June for 3 weeks. And then we'll have the final one in Scorpio overlapping the Venus retrograde, which is from October 3rd to November 13th, from Scorpio back to Libra, but the Mercury will just be in Scorpio. All the retrogrades in Mercury this year are in water signs. Okay. So, looking at this chart, remember the focus is on Jupiter. I mean, obviously it's Cancer season. And I was thinking about it in a way, it's not truly what we call mutual reception, but the Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and the Sun in Cancer, it's the ruler of Leo. So it's almost like a mutual reception. Mutual reception would be as if the moon was in Leo, right? The ruler of Cancer. I've never heard of anybody looking at the mutual reception when it's, the planet is not at home, it's exalted. But just a little interesting note that I saw there. And the Mercury did just go retrograde on the 29th. Okay. So the one thing that we're going to focus on is there is a lot of emphasis on when you're looking at this chart with the emotional mind. Jupiter just coming off that 1 year transit in Cancer, where it was exalted, was really activating the divine feminine and divine masculine energy, our roots, our ancestors. I did sort of have that prediction, and I'd have to check the stats, but I know just from like sort of paying attention because I don't really watch the news anymore, but I get the highlights of everything just for the astro weather and keeping up with the astrology and the mundane astrology. I do believe this year, while Jupiter was in Cancer, I would say, I think there have been less school shootings. It's actually been pretty calm. There's been other weird stuff, right? But and ICE and all this other foolishness, but and I think homeschooling definitely has been on the uprise, and probably will continue to be that way as these structures and systems continue to crumble and deteriorate at the rate that they are. Um, with the we'll start with the Jupiter and Leo. So Jupiter, just to make sure everybody, knows this, Jupiter is our wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies. It's the teacher, preacher, professor, the guru, shaman. It's higher learning, gaining wisdom and knowledge, expansion, abundance, fortune, luck, even though I don't believe in luck. But one thing about Jupiter that people do forget, it can also be biology, finance, and management. In war, it's the general. And Jupiter is the husband in a wife's chart or a same-sex couple. Okay, so Jupiter is very important. And we'll talk about it at the end when we get to Aries risings, because with Jupiter and Leo in the fifth house for Aries risings, as I mentioned to Cephas, right? But just all Aries risings, you just want to know if you don't want a pregnancy or situation, then you take your precautions. Because when Jupiter is transiting the fifth house, it can literally create a pregnancy in children because the fifth house is children. Okay. And just so you guys also remember, Jupiter's in its planetary joy in the 11th house, right? And so when we talk about that, that will be for right off the top, I guess for the Libra risings, right? Because the Leo will be in the 11th house. So that will be really nice for the Libra risings. And you guys had mentioned we have a couple of people that have Libra rising family members and relationships and stuff like that. So really cool. So the first thing you want to look at is, well, let's say Leo, and then we'll talk about Jupiter and Leo. Leo is obviously the fifth sign in the zodiac, the second fire sign. It's a fixed, masculine, fixed fire sign, right? And remember, the masculine are fire and air, the feminine are earth and water. And so masculine is not male. It just means assertive, initiating, outgoing, like the right hand, right? Earth and water, feminine, not female, intuitive, receptive, sometimes more passive, but definitely more introspective. Okay. That's a challenge. Fire and air signs are not naturally introspective, but you're looking at, if you're just looking at the sun, yeah, your sun may not be introspective, but you could have Moon or Mercury or other planets that, will lead you to be more contemplative and introspective. But that's just not the major attributes of a fire and air sign. They're not looking to look within because they're action orientated, right? They're embracing and attacking life. Okay. So Jupiter and Leo in general, the one thing you have to be concerned about is that Jupiter, right, can expand the creative self-expression, the regal king and queen energy, right? The generosity, the creativity, the connection to children, that energy of embracing and being in the spotlight, right? Getting that attention, right? If you notice, as I always talk about the baby boomers, they're not putting down the mantle, right? You look at Trump and Oprah and different people, they're like, I'll be famous until my last breath. Like they need the limelight, right? Because a lot of them, their parents were in the silent generation, right? Dealing with the depression. And so Pluto, Leo, the boomers, they're like, hey, still the kid inside, look at me, mom, dad, look at me, right? And so what Jupiter and Leo can also expand, because Leo is connected to the politicians and the entertainers. So that's really interesting when we're talking about a mundane chart and breaking this down in terms of, there's been a big hit on politicians and entertainers in the last few years. So we have to wonder if Jupiter and Leo will be a positive thing. This chart doesn't necessarily show that it is, though. All right. And the reason why, and also let me explain the negative sides. Jupiter in Leo can expand good and bad, and it can expand the ego, the arrogance, the stubbornness, right? The look at me, some of the narcissistic behaviors. Um, So those are some of the things that we also have to consider when Jupiter is in Leo, right? Because remember, Jupiter being that teacher, preacher, professor, guru, shaman, Jupiter wants to really, let me just double. Yeah, I did hit record, right? Okay. I just want to make sure. Um, Jupiter in Leo, when you're dealing with the creativity and that self-expression, you want it to be really from the heart. And remember, I told you guys this is really beautiful because 2027, the human design prophecy is speaking of the expansion of the heart chakra, that the collective is vibrating, right? And human design, if you're familiar with it, has different gates. But the collective energy is in the gate of the heart chakra, is in the solar plexus and has been for a while. But in 2027, it's moving into the heart chakra. And that's aligned with Jupiter in Leo, right? Because this will be a full year. So this will be, I believe, to July 1st, 2027. So I thought that was really apropos and kind of beautiful. And I'm just like, wow, God is just showing off. No mistakes. So this is really, I think, the positive thing that we need to embrace with Jupiter and Leo is that we all need to go back to our inner child. Many Fortune 500 companies at this time are doing things where they have their workers literally have 30 minutes of play and joy a day because they found in research and studies that it makes the workforce and just anybody more productive in their day when they activate their heart chakra and just have fun for 30 minutes a day. So that's something we should all implement into our lives, okay? But when you talk about the politicians and even the celebrities, which that type of thing is really dead and dying, and that ended with Pluto Capricorn and sort of the ending of the Piscean age, especially with Neptune now in Aries and not in Pisces with the illusion and everybody putting filters on Instagram. You're going to see now, as I've been telling you guys more than ever, right? The four highest frequencies, but the main number one, authenticity. People want to see Quintella, Gail, Chantel, right? Tone, Cephas, Eric. They just want to see us being our authentic selves. They're not worried about J Lo and Beyonce the way they were in the past, right? Or, Clooney or Brad Pitt. They're more concerned about, well, one, themselves, and that can happen too with Jupiter and Leo, right? Look at me. Okay. So this is going to be a lot of that energy too, but which is kind of funny. But let's talk about this opposition though, because Pluto and it's retrograde. And so remember when you're talking about the opposition, right? It's sister signs. So you have the Aquarius and the Leo, but Pluto looking at Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter can expand anything it's aspecting, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. And so the one thing you have to think about, it's going to expand that need for being your true authentic self, right? And that's really powerful because authenticity, love, gratitude, and joy, the four highest frequencies. And the most authentic sister sign combo is Aquarius and Leo, right? Aquarius is not trying to be anybody else. They just are authentically them. That's the easiest thing for them to do and be, where other signs, they may need to pay more attention. They may need to, try a little harder to not emulate or want to be like others or have the FOMO, fear of missing out or anything. Leo, Aquarius, they wake up like, here I am, here I is, right? And so that's really beautiful. And Leo is very connected to the sun and God and Christ consciousness. So when you're looking at this opposition, Pluto retrograde is speaking to the pain, trauma, and crises from childhood and past lives. And remember, I tell you guys, Pluto's virus. The fixed signs deal with toxins. So this is why I talk about doing the parasite cleanse, right? Dis-ease in the body is really through, the parasites and mucus and inflammation, right? Stagnant blood. So one thing that this Jupiter, especially for this chart in the Taurus risings in the 10th house, there's that. transformation in public for your career, your reputation, and legacy. But Pluto Aquarius in general to 2044 and opposing Jupiter is really speaking to your health, your heart, your vitality, right? And to expand through doing the shadow work, being introspective, getting your gut health and getting yourself right so that you can continue on thriving, being your true authentic self for your legacy. Now, the one thing when you're dealing with this opposition, what is Pluto, what is Jupiter receiving from Pluto? Jupiter in Leo, and specifically in this, looking at the fourth house, the Pluto is saying, what's going on in your emotional mind, right? Do you have the self-love to step out into the spotlight? Are you, honoring your lineage, your roots, and your family by being your true authentic self and sharing that generosity in your heart? So these are questions and things, but in general, for the Taurus risings in this chart energy, Jupiter Leo is speaking to that lineage at home, right? Having that expansion in your home. But to really, when we think of the fourth house, it's what? It's our foundation, right? So not everybody had a loving, nurturing mom, or some people grew up, with grandparents and maybe dad, or it just depends on our life experiences, right? And so Jupiter and Leo, excuse me, has us, this time in our lives, giving us this opportunity to really come back home, right? And what is that home? Whatever lights up your heart. So whether it's your childhood home, your high school, college friends, your best cousin, your siblings, and maybe it's something new. Because with Jupiter and Leo in the fourth house for Taurus risings, this can honestly bring expansion to your home. This can also, Jupiter gets into travel and taking flight and also education. So again, not like Cancer, but for Taurus risings, this could really expand homeschooling, right? Or wanting to expand your home repairs, or literally leave your home. Now, the issue with the square to Taurus, right? And Chiron, the one thing that we have to deal with is that what is the wounding? Because Chiron and Taurus, a lot of time, we've talked about this, and even in my workshop last year with Anjani Segrest, Chiron and Taurus is dealing with the wounding of the throat chakra. Now, Jupiter can expand that, and sometimes the Chiron wound is that it's out of balance, right? It can be an emotional, physical, or spiritual wound. And in transit, it's really affecting all of us, right? Whether you have this natally or not, right? If you're of that age where you're going to get ready to go through your Chiron return, this is where you can turn that wounding into being the healer. So it's really important to embrace that and to learn about and understand that energy. But at the same time, Chiron and Taurus can be around our throat chakra, our jaw, right? Our kind of speech, our, somewhat of our face, our throat, our collarbone. But Taurus also, it can really be about the tactile five senses touching the body. Sometimes Chiron Taurus, they don't want to be touched. So the Jupiter square, it can show that frustration and irritation, right? That maybe, you know, Taurus risings, there's too much emphasis on the family and home, and you're not nurturing yourself, right? Or this can be opportunities for growth, for healing, because when you are dealing with Chiron, the greatest thing is to help others, because then in turn you're healing and helping yourself. So squares, the 90-degree angle, they share the same modality, which is what? Fixed earth, fixed fire. Okay. So they have the same intention of being stabilizers in the zodiac, foundational, stubborn, sometimes very, investigative, and can concentrate and focus on things for extended periods of time. But we also got to consider this can be, where we need to protect our children. So Taurus risings, maybe they've got to think about also, you know, with that Chiron wound, the square, maybe it is speaking to not having your children spending the night in other people's homes, or watch the church dwellings or after school programs or buildings they're going to. Now, because it is a square to Jupiter, chances are people are going to be safe. But, I never take for granted anything in the fourth house. The Jupiter is fine itself, it's just the square. But, often I will let parents know if you're dealing with Pluto and Lilith and different things, you just have to let them know, like, hey, be mindful of, really, how much do we know our friends, our children's friends' parents? We really don't. So we have to just be very careful with, children spending the night at other people's houses. I know we took a bit to, let the boys do that. And really tried to establish. I think we've gotten a little lax on that now that they've gotten a little bit older, but you just got to be careful, even at 13, you still got to just, keep an eye on the kids. And, we have a family code word and they have cell phones and stuff like that. So, it's important. Let's not forget this trine to Neptune. So Jupiter in Leo is trining Neptune. And so this is about dreaming the dream. And it's within the aspect. Remember, even for the opposition, you could do 0 to 5, 0 to 7. I like, the closer orb. That's 0 to 4 with the Pluto. The Chiron is exact. The trine, I like 0 to 5. You can still go up to 0 to 7. Some astrologers even go up to 8. But, the Neptune at 4, that's the easy flow of energy. So this is really tapping into whatever rising sign we look at, but particularly for this one in the water houses, these are the spiritual houses, right? 4, 8, and 12. So Jupiter trining Neptune, we can initiate things in the spiritual realm, our spiritual gifts. This is where, a lot of people can becoming, and, we have, we have one Taurus rising here with Gale. This is where people can be, become dream interpreters or really manifest, trips and vacations and things like that. Okay. So Jupiter trine Neptune also can expand our imagination, our spiritual gifts, our creativity. On the negative side, because Jupiter, even though, remember, trines are a soft aspect and they're positive, right? But you know, Jupiter can expand all the attributes of a planet or sign. And so Neptune and Aries, we have to watch where this could be initiating, too much isolation, right? We talked about last night, June being a seventh month, where, we need to focus on our spiritual practice and, be sort of introspective more. But even though this is June 30th, so this will really be for July into next year, and beyond. But the one thing you got to consider is that what is Neptune? Addiction, right? Escapism, illusion, delusion, deception, confusion. So, and Aries does rule the head, the I am energy, assertive, aggressive, initiating. So, trines are great, but remember, it can be the trust fund, baby. Netflix and chill, just sitting on the couch, just thinking everything's going to come to them. I don't have to work. Dad's a billionaire, So you have to be mindful because, we can get into being a sloth or super lazy. And Jupiter could expand that attribute of the Neptune quite literally. So we have to be mindful of that. But on the positive, this is like dream big or go home, like really initiate new creativity. The fire signs are the spark of life. It's all about passion. It's about initiating. It's like, I can do anything, right? And that's the mentality that we need to have, right? That Chiron leaving Aries and leading up to the June 19th, it's at 29 degrees as we speak. And, it's really that opportunity to heal those childhood wounds about being brave and courageous, about stepping into, I tell you about the man and the woman in the arena, step onto the stage. Aries, excuse me, childhood genius, right? 0 to 7. Aries is a pioneer maverick, and they're not really afraid to start something. It's about them completing it, right? Remember, it's the spark of life, but it's the cardinal fire sign. So sometimes Aries will start it. They'll start a bunch of projects, but they don't finish it. That's where Capricorn, in terms of the cardinal, Aries, Cancer, Libra. Libra wants to do it with someone else. Cancer needs to feel emotionally safe and secure about it. Capricorn's just like, I'm the seagull climbing up the mountain of success. Whatever I start, I finish. That's my reputation. That's my legacy on the line. I get the job done, right? Big Daddy Kane, I work. So that's the Capricorn energy. So I really like, overall this feel. Obviously with the Mars and Uranus and Gemini, that's a lot. July 4th, we're going to have the exact conjunction. We did that at Coffee Talk, and that video's on YouTube now. This is I don't know if you guys remember, it was like 3, 4 years ago now. We had Mars in Gemini for like 6, 7 months. I refer back to it because I can't forget it. I saw so many things happen in my life with my kids and just different things and literally injuries, burnt hand, hurt elbow, but Mars and Gemini here for the Taurus rising in the sixth house and just the overall chart conjunct the Uranus. It's not exact, but you're feeling this already. And this can be very verbally explosive. Now, we do have the sextile to the Mars to Jupiter. So that's really good for initiating creativity, initiating communications, your skills, your self efforts. Okay. And this can be things around the home, real estate, property management. Just so you guys know, Mars is property and real estate, it's land, it's brothers, boyfriends. So this could be initiating new relationships. This can be initiating, like, hey, I'm ready to get married, right? A bunch of different things. So, but it could also be how we earn money, right? Mars, second house, suddenly you start teaching something, right, from your home. Okay. With Jupiter and Leo, just remember in the fourth house, especially for Taurus risings, this can definitely speak about starting a home business, right? Or teaching things out of your home. Hey, it's Eric Taylor, BigEAstro Astrology. I hope you're enjoying the video. I really appreciate you supporting my channel. It helps it grow. Do me a little favor. Just click the like button, make sure you hit subscribe, and maybe share it to your social media or to a friend. You never know what they may learn from one of these videos or appreciate and love like you do. But please leave a comment down below. It helps it grow in the algorithm. You'll be surprised. And, thank you for enjoying and watching the video. Always, you have any questions, please reach out, eric@bigeastrology.com, or check out my website for services, bigeastrology.com. Get back to the video. I hope you enjoy it. Peace. Okay. But I think this is really powerful for our emotional mind. And even Gail, maybe for you as a Taurus rising, if there was, something you did to like get into some research and lineage to find out about, grandparents, or go through some of your old books that maybe mom or dad or grandparents left behind. And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that all my family was, Cherokee or this and that or whatever, These are the things that Jupiter can expand when we're talking about our emotional mind, the mother's lineage, mom, grandma, great grandma, and our ancestors, But remember,
yes, I have been thinking about ancestors because after my grandmother, that's it. I don't know about anyone else beyond that. So I don't know about my grandmother's parents. So it just came to mind like a week or two ago. I don't know past my grandparents.
yeah. Okay. Well,
So
then
on both sides of the family.
then this may be that time where,
Yeah.
it sparks it, and then you start doing the research and you find out a lot. That's going to be a big theme, I think, for Taurus risings, to be honest with you, with the fourth house. The one thing about, really, I want to talk about just the manifesting for Taurus risings, with Jupiter and Leo in the fourth house, that can be something that you really focus on and manifest, right? Through the mother's lineage, talking to your mom and grandma, because they may, Neptune trine 12th house, it's back there. They may, you may really get some of the answers in the dream realm. right? Remember, we do the code, the 2137, but we got to do it 45 times. 12 works, but 45 brings it home. And we can even do it 9 days in a row. It really solidifies it. But what happens is when you guys do the code, head on the pillow, 2137, you can be conscious and aware in your dreams, but you may remember two, three, four dreams in a night, right? I just always tell you guys don't OD on it and, do it all the time. But these codes, even like the codes for pain, 55515, we do them 45 times, we can have some relief. Okay. And so, yeah, this would be really powerful for Taurus risings and for you, Gail, because, this is where, maybe from your home, say it again.
Oh, that's not me.
Okay. No, I was saying maybe from your home, you can, oh, sorry, let me just check to see if somebody's in the chat. But we could expand, and get into getting some knowledge about our childhood. Okay. Uh, from our father's legacy. Okay. All right. Oh, we got just came in. Hello, how are you? Welcome. Okay. So that's really important because, the Pluto's in the 10th house. And so, for Taurus risings, that Pluto in the 10th house does speak to, that magnetic energy out in public. But Pluto is what? The shadow work, it's transformation, transmutation. But this is where we get into revealing, some of the magnetic and power, control, abuse, narcissists. So you have to watch out for that. I think the Jupiter opposition, though, would nullify that a little bit. So the only other thing that I really want to touch on before we go to all the brother rising signs is that, you know, we have got to, and specifically for this chart in Taurus risings, because it's kind of like, it kind of overlaps. Um, we have to embrace that when we are willing to focus on the things that heal our heart, forgive our parents and forgive ourselves and anybody that created wounds, because the reality is it's not exact, but this is a fixed T-square, right? The Pluto, the Chiron, and Jupiter. So what's happening here is that the opposition then meets and then points to the Chiron and Taurus. And so it's about us opening up our throat chakras at this time, right? And that leads to our creative self-expression. Remember, Taurus, Gemini, and Leo are three, and then you throw in Libra, very artistic signs, right? The Venus is our creativity, our aesthetic, our fashion, right? And so Taurus is bringing things into the physical realm. So this can bring an opportunity that maybe if we do tap into our lineage, we do the shadow work and heal our traumas from childhood and past lives, we do take care of our gut health and parasite cleanse, that this T square pointing to the Chiron, sorry, I got this app for these kids and I guess they're on their bike. I don't know what they are, 360. So they, that Chiron, it's like wanting us to heal our self-worth. And the best way to do that is to live, vibrate, and honor your heart, right? So Jupiter is going to allow us to walk into our regal king. So Gail, you're right. You live alone. You are the queen of your palace, but you are anyway. Even if you had a house full of people, Taurus risings, men or women, when
Mhm.
they come home, it's sort of like the queen is home or the king is home. Hello. It's a real thing. Okay. I live with a Taurus rising, right? She's like that. So, it's very funny, but it's true. And with this Jupiter here, oh man, it's like, but there can be a lot of learning, right? To expand your emotional mind, your emotional intelligence. Okay. So this is really beautiful for Taurus rising. But just remember that fixed T square pointing to the Chiron, it's wanting us to really expand and heal our values, our self-worth. You know, some of us, we have different values from our parents, and that's okay. Maybe we've healed and we've evolved in ways they were not able to. And it doesn't mean we're not honoring them or disrespecting them, but we're individual souls, so we've got to walk our path, right? And then we have to understand that with our children, right? We are their guides, they are our teachers, okay? Um, Quintella knows that, right? You know, so it's really powerful. And so just imagine, you know, with the Taurus, right? Many of us have had our throat chakras closed for years where we didn't feel like we could speak our Aquarius authentic truth, right? And so, you know, doing the introspection, even though this is June 30th, it's still within the, you know, it's the last day, but it's this universal seventh month. So yeah, we need to do the introspection, activate our throat chakras, right? And say the positive affirmations to ourselves or about ourselves that we are more than worthy. We're amazing. You know, this world, this matrix has us thinking that we're less than, but we're not, right? We're giants, we're big. Okay. And so like we need to step into that stage. All right. Any questions before we go to Gemini rising? And I'll say this though, this because it's after the full moon and it's only hours after and the Mercury retrograde, right? We're forced to be introspective with the Mercury retrograde, okay? And the Cap moon, we're still going to have that mentality of the hard work and our legacy, you know? I mean, June 30th this year, maybe we're thinking about emotionally traveling and going on vacations. We're thinking about our wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies. Capricorn moon is very underestimated for how creative it is with writing and music. But in the ninth house, specifically for Taurus risings, but just in general in this chart, whatever house it's in, there is that element of music and writing. Okay. But maybe Taurus risings, maybe there's a book to write. Maybe Miss Gail's going to be sharing something with us. Okay. So Gemini, and is everybody's good with this and Taurus risings? From we
I
now,
had a quick question.
yes, go ahead.
So with this happening right after the full moon,
That's
and
energy
then
is still going to be there. Yeah.
it's in Capricorn, would you say that either I wouldn't say on that day, but a little bit after a lot of stuff, well, I mean, it's already getting revealed, but with the structures and stuff, would you say that around that time or during that time that'll start coming to the light more?
Definitely. And the ruler of the moon, Aries, Saturn, beginning
Mm,
new structures,
okay.
right? Um, you know, the one thing that's really wild about this is that this chart makes me feel like it may take a while because you hear them talking about it every day, but this Jupiter trine Neptune. Neptune is what, you guys? Oils and gas. It's the oceans, the Strait of Hormuz. So I think it may take all the way to June 30th to fully get it open and to truly get a cease. You know, they talk about a ceasefire, but every day they're still shooting at each other. You know what I mean? It's childish, you know, but we know in general, right, that these things are spiritual. Okay. This is not
Mm.
about nuclear and about oil and gas. This is not about religion. This is about stargates. This is about, you know, financial shifts. And this is deeper. Okay. Um, Iran is Stargate 10, I think Hawaii Stargate 11. And so this is about the souls coming in and out of this planet. Everything I've always say it, right? We've been in spiritual war. They talk about World War III. It's already been going on. Spiritual warfare has been happening probably since the beginning of time. I mean, you could debate, you know, us being hybrids with Anunnaki and different, you know, aliens and giants and stuff like that, and the Nephilim. You know, who knows? You know, because right now, right, they're talking about all this stuff with the aliens. They're admitting to stuff. They're revealing stuff every day. Um, but why now? That's what you got to ask. Why now? right? And so,
Right. Yeah.
you know, there's going to be, and so that's why I tell people don't fear because they've always been around, right? If the aliens wanted to end us, we would have been gone. You know what I'm saying? So the question is that, how protected are we, right? Because we see that we've been, our energy's been loosed forever. This is what predictive programming and all this stuff is. The AI, we're the ancient intelligence, but AI is not new. They have technologies underground and different things they've been doing for years, for decades. So anything that we get, that's not the technology. They have the technology 10 times more advanced. And what you see sometimes in the movies, yeah, it's not just a movie. They have those capabilities. Remember years ago with Gene Hackman and Will Smith and Lisa Bonet. Whew. The enemy of the state. Sorry, still got that crush from a different world days on Lisa Bonet. But like for real, like think about it. Like the technology in that movie was like, oh my gosh, right? They were seeing things through your home. Why do you think they got rid of the lead paint, right? The lead paint blocks them from seeing stuff in your home, right? So you got to think about everything, Nobody was eating, no kids were eating lead paint chips and stuff like that. The lead paint can block them from EMFing or, even the internet or just being, I mean, they literally from satellites out of space can see you inside your house. The smart television, the router, they can see the heat, the vibration, right? Everything in the universe is energy, frequency, vibration. They know your movements. They know how you get in your bed. They know when you get in your bed. Come on, y'all. We know what's up. Like they know that. They know your chart. The church knows your chart. All right. So this is where I tell people all the time. They say sometimes my astro brother, right? We've got to stop. We're not in Disneyland anymore. We're not on the yellow brick road with Dorothy. We got to put on our big boy pants and big girl pants and deal only in reality and truth so we can move forward the best way we need to, healthy, healed, and vibrating on the highest frequencies we can. Okay. So, but that full moon, Cancer Capricorn is very much about our legacy, our finances, our home, our work, our safety, security, our family, right? So it's almost perfect that this chart happens to be a Taurus rising. Maybe it could be a little different if we were looking at maybe because I told you like depending on the longitude and latitude, this one's pretty good at 7, but let's say if we were doing it at maybe Florida or California, maybe it could switch to it being Aries rising or something. But, you know, when it's not close to either side, chances are it's going to be a Taurus rising for a lot of America. Now, if you're moving to another country for this chart, yeah, definitely it could be a Gemini or Aries rising easily. Okay. So let's go to Gemini. So we're just kind of switching everything up. And so that means this Jupiter in Leo is going to be in the third house. Okay. So for Gemini risings, this is really dealing with your siblings, your neighborhood, your skills, your self efforts, but your social media, Gemini risings, stepping out into the spotlight, right? You with your creative self expression, right? And healing any of those doubts of your throat chakra with the Chiron Taurus in the 12th house, but that's your hidden talent, right? So this Jupiter is like kind of from the third to the 12th, the Chiron wound, right? And that means, we got the Aquarius in the sixth, that T square pointing to this. It's like, hey, talk about it in your dreams and activate your hidden talents and step out into the stage. Remember, what we can manifest with Jupiter and Leo is expansion from our heart, our generosity. Leo is the warmest. Remember, I always tell you, Leo moon women give the warmest and best hugs. But like this is a beautiful energy, you know? Yeah, there can be some, arrogance and ego and more stubborn and oh, look at me. But for the most part, I know everybody here and watching my channel, we're seeking the highest vibration, right? And so Jupiter and Leo, this is really going to bring us that opportunity that when we communicate from our heart, it can literally be healing to others too, because that means we're going to speak it authentically, right, from the throat chakra. So this fixed T square and then the trine and Neptune, it's inviting us to be using our imagination, our creativity to tap into our spirituality, right? So if the Jupiter and Leo is in the third house, that Neptune Aries trine is in the 11th house of the overall internet with groups, organizations, and society. So Gemini risings, yeah, you already know, Quintella, it's time. You gotta, and that's where even if it's like, okay, I've got this Tuesday and Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. I've got an hour. I'm going to go live. I'm going to create my video. I'm going to do my YouTube channel. I'm going to do something creative, right? Because we have to think about when you connect this to the human design prophecy and when you connect the Leo energy, Leo is it's the sun, right? That's Jyotish. It's the light of the world. So it's like Leos can't be small even if they tried. I got Leo twins at home. They are, good, bad, or indifferent. You always hear or feel their energy. Their energy is big. It's the sun, so it's like you can't tell a Virgo not to analyze something, and you can't tell a Gemini to stop talking, and you can't tell Leo to be the spotlight and to be the center of attention. It's the sun. That's who they are. You know what I mean? So with Jupiter there, it's expanding that. So this is the time to be bigger than life. People are going to, I mean, and even El Presidente, this is on his ascendant. Oh man, there's going to be some peacocking. July 4th, he may do like a crip walk on the mall, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh God, that's really funny. But like, seriously, like Jupiter, and Leo, it's bigger than life. So Gemini risings, this is with your skills and self efforts. This is with social media. This is with the adult relationship with your mother. Maybe there's something to guide and teach and share some information and knowledge. It's up to them if they receive it. But remember, Jupiter is the teacher, preacher, professor. So, yeah, in Leo, it may be more creative self expression, but it's also that authority, right? The sun is connected to the government. Leo is the politician, politics, entertainers. So, being that regal king and queen, right? The Leo is the king, doesn't want to bow down to anybody. Okay, so this is where in the local community you want to share, but also this could be a lot of traveling and also even taking classes, learning, teaching. So Gemini risings, this is really a good opportunity. But then, we want to also make sure with the Pluto in the ninth, you're thinking about, your beliefs, right? Transmuting any negative beliefs that still have you doubting, right? Or, maybe the journaling comes into like a little memoir, or maybe there's some things that you got to let go of and forgive about your father's teachings, right? Because that Pluto is there, especially for Quintella with that Aquarius sun, that's very powerful. So those are things that are, dealing with your identity and your father, and even that vitality. And this is why I say with Pluto in Aquarius, it is time, most Americans have never done a parasite cleanse. Indigenous cultures around the world, sometimes they do one or two a year. But there's some that I researched and I don't remember their names, but I was like, wow, some people do it each season, which makes sense. energetically, as we switch the seasons, remember when we had Ami Diaz at the tribe, you know, you're dealing with activation of different organs based on the season, right? The Hun and dealing with the liver or the gallbladder. And that's the same process your body goes through each night. So the witching hour is like what, 3 to 4 or whatever, but that's like the liver. So that's the time when they say your ancestors and spirit guides, nobody's watching you. Most human beings, when they die in their sleep, they die between like, I think like 2:30 to 4:30. And that's like liver time. You know what I mean? So we got to think about, even just with health, because this Jupiter is opposing Pluto Aquarius, to try to, you know, not eat after the sun sets. Try to sun gaze at, excuse me, sunrise and sunset to activate the melanin, right? As I always say, even for people watching the replay, my European brothers and sisters, right? You guys can definitely, you know, do fine in the sun with a clean diet and then integrating without sunglasses, sunrise and sunset with the sun gazing because everybody has melanin. It's just different types of melanin. Okay. Melanated people, it's neuromelanin. Okay. So, but everybody has melanin. Don't test me on
Yeah.
all the different types and the names because I surely can't remember it, but I do know that. So, any questions before we go to Cancer risings? And Quintella, have you been thinking about a new car in the next year? Or do you need a new car?
Yes, I
Yep.
have been.
Yep. So that Jupiter in the third house, because that's transportation, yeah, and it may just happen to be a car that is white, orange, yellow, or red, but definitely this would be that year with Jupiter and Leo in your third house. Okay.
Okay,
And a lot of writing. Remember we were talking about it last
that
night,
makes sense.
the automatic writing too, but a lot of writing and journaling, you
And
know.
I'm wondering if that may trigger my creativity because my creativity it just feels stifled. So when it come to creating videos for YouTube, I just draw blanks. Like, okay, what do I do next?
Well, see, but okay, but look, Pluto Aquarius opposing the Jupiter, this is where I tell you, we don't let it use us, but we can use it. Whether it's Claude or Grok or Chat GPT, you can just, type in and get some ideas. You do
Okay.
what you want to do and you feed it the way you want to feed it, right? I don't let chat create content for me, but if I write something, I may put it in there and ask it just to clean it up or zhuzh it up, right? And then I'll go back and re-edit it, and then boom. So you need to use it as an assistant, right? We're grown, right? It's more dangerous for the kids when they haven't established their own, free will and free thinking and their own creativity to then rely on AI. It's actually terrible for children in that sense. But for grown adults, we've been doing stuff with our brains forever. So it's like a nice little assistant, So that's where the AI can be beneficial and helpful. You can put in different things and then it can spit out some good organized thoughts and ideas, and then you can expound upon that and just, take it from there. Okay. I definitely
Okay.
recommend that. So, Cancer risings, I think we have Chantel. Is a Cancer rising? Anybody else?
My father's a Cancer rising.
Oh, okay, cool, Tony. And I'm sorry, what's your rising? Oh, you're Capricorn. Okay. So Cancer is your father. Okay, so the Cancer risings, obviously you can have the sun there and the moon in the seventh house coming off the full moon, right? Along with the retrograde. So for Cancer risings, there's Jupiter Leo's in the second house. Okay. And that Chiron is in Taurus, right, is going to be in the 12th. I'm sorry, in the 11th. But Jupiter, Leo, Cancer risings, come on, like this is great. You Chantel, this is getting the bag. But this is also with Jupiter in the second house, this can really extend the family values, in some ways, maybe reconnect you with dad. But this can also be from your speech, communicating from your heart, that you're guiding and teaching not just your kids, but others. And maybe it's an expanding on how you're earning your money. It can literally, for Cancer risings, as the young kids say, this bring in the bag, right? You can create more wealth. Okay. But this is also about really activating the self-worth, right? Now, there can be with Pluto, Aquarius, and eighth house for Cancer risings. This can definitely be a back tax payment from IRS. It can also be an inheritance or something from other people's money or your spouse's resources, right? Some sort of transformation or transmutation, things like that around that. But definitely the eighth house and the Jupiter in the second, communicating and learning or teaching about the esoteric occult knowledge as well. Okay. Um, Really, with the Mercury retrograde on the ascendant Cancer risings, it's also about introspection, and not emotionally communicating, right? Mentally getting your mind clear before you emotionally communicate, right? With Mercury retrograde on the ascendant Cancer risings, you don't want to get, into the feelings too much. The Mercury retrograde is saying, like, let's reanalyze, assess, be introspective. Cancer is very good at being introspective. And then with this Jupiter in second house, communicate after you contemplate from the heart, right? But your speech is going to be dynamic for the next year. So people are going to want to listen to you talk no matter what you're saying, Chantal. And maybe you're teaching about the gardening. Maybe you're teaching about the plants and the herbs, right? Because that Pluto eighth house, you want to tap in to those crystals and herbs. Let them help you earn money, right? Pluto Aquarius here and Juno, let them help you, you know? I think that's, really a beautiful way to connect. Now, for the Cancer risings, that Capricorn moon, that's also illuminating things that maybe, right? It's endings. So maybe there's something ending in a relationship or marriage. Maybe there's something ending about, or illuminating about something about business, things in the kitchen. Maybe it's building a new legacy. Jupiter, Leo, second house, right? I always tell you, I don't tell you what to eat, but the second and sixth house, fire sign, more of the solar food, more of the fruits and vegetables in the kitchen. Capricorn moon, seventh house. And it's also the marketplace, But that also could be mom being up in a cookie jar in your marriage or relationship as well. Okay. But the ruler, Saturn, Aries, maybe there's like a new beginning in their marriage or relationship, or a new relationship, or new structures in a business. Okay. And obviously that Aries, Saturn, and Neptune are in your 10th house. So, that's, and hold on, let's see, is that, because that moon at 11, yeah, that moon is squaring to Saturn. So, it's a 3-degree orb, but the ruler of the moon, Saturn, is squaring it. So, that's something too, in terms of, you know, you cannot, and I want you guys to all remember this, it doesn't matter what a sign we're talking about. At this time, whatever house we have the Aries in, I told you until April 12th, 2028, you got to think before you respond and react. You have to plan and have structures and discipline and organization before you impulsively initiate, right? Aries is just boom, 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 right? Remember, I told you Aries is so pure. Three most pure signs are Aries, Cancer, Leo. They're not intending to hurt anybody, right? But Aries, if Aries got to get somewhere, they'll step on your toes. You may have like a cleat on your toe or ankle, but they didn't mean to hurt you. You were in their way when they were going where they had to go, right? Remember the ram? I told you the ram is visually impaired. It boom, initiates head first, trying to gain spatial awareness. So Aries is like they're about that life. They're going to get their goals and maybe emotionally immature. They don't want to hear the word no. So Saturn has come here at this time to tell Aries, listen, you got to respond to your abilities. You got to be the pioneer maverick, but you have to be structured, disciplined, organized, and have a plan. So this moon squaring it is letting us know to build that legacy and reputation, Capricorn moon, with the hard work, we've got to initiate properly with our abilities, be responsible, organized, structured, and have a plan. And Jupiter Leo is going to take that plan and make it come out from your throat chakra. And, you communicate from the throat chakra straight from your heart. So Cancer risings, this is really a really powerful time. And I would definitely connect to the crystals and herbs more as well. Okay. Any questions on that, Chantal?
I didn't, Eric. I'm actually a Cancer sun and Sag rising.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So the Cancer sun. Okay. I don't know. I always confuse that with you. The Cancer and the Sag rising. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you feel like a Cancer rising to me, but you're just the Cancer sun. So at least I remember that part. Okay. So now Leo risings. This is on your ascendant. So the Pluto's in the 7th house, Jupiter on the ascendant. You're going to feel like, your aura, right? The first house is what? Your physical appearance, your outer mask, the only house of self, and your aura. Remember during the pandemic, 6 feet apart, the auric field. So when Jupiter's on the ascendant, you may actually stand up straighter and feel taller. You will feel like you want to teach, preach, share your wisdom and knowledge. You may want to take more classes to improve yourself, self-help classes, right? Anything from the esoteric occult knowledge. Leo risings, they're very protective over their children. Okay. And the Chiron is in Taurus in the 10th house with the Pluto in the 7th house. So there's a lot of things about their relationships and career, that are really, and maybe there's opportunities to heal wounds with dad or things around the government. Maybe it's speaking their truth. But with Jupiter on the ascendant, Leos are about to they're going to really get to soaring and flying on everybody. And I think it's going to be a very powerful time. The thing that they've got to consider is that, that Capricorn moon squaring the Saturn in their 9th, there has to be some discipline about exercise and health, right? Saturn 9th house, Aries, hips and thighs, moon 6th house, daily routine, health, hygiene, sicknesses, right? Got to be disciplined with the food we're eating and definitely move the hips and thighs and walk. But I think with Jupiter on the ascendant, that's going to be that natural energy that they're going to want to be active, and they will be big time communicating. And it's hard to imagine, right? Because this is Trump's ascendant, that he could communicate more. You know what I mean? But there's definitely, but that opposition to Pluto, this Leo risings, if they're not dealing in truth, because remember, Jupiter opposite Pluto Aquarius, it's going to reveal more truth. So if you've been doing dirt, it's going to be revealed. Jupiter's going to, and remember, we have this thing, and forgive me, I forget the name, this, I guess, famous astrologer passed away, Andrea Bocelli or something, but he created this thing with the Barbarell's basket or something, and it's coming up in July. So you're going to have Jupiter at 4 degrees, Pluto at 4 degrees, Neptune at 4 degrees, and Uranus at 4 degrees. And that's an opposition, a trine, and a sextile. And it makes this little kind of basket. But he was predicting that it's basically going to be this positive, harmonious energy for kind of universal or collective change, initiating a new beginning. And so I don't know if this is going to be around aliens. Is it going to be around free energy? Is it going to be around reparations, financial booms? Who knows, right? But the one thing I will say, just remember, just like we could have Project Blue Beam or false flag events, we can also have this, oh my God, I've fixed everything and the financial boom and this and that, and everybody gets a check for 10,000 or $20,000, but it may not be what you think it really is. So just always have the spiritual discernment. You know what I mean? And there may be an opportunity where, with the power grid shut down and this and that, that we all, especially July 4th, anything can go down with that Mars-Uranus conjunction. And then they come back with the Fed now, the digital currency, and to get on the internet that you may have to log in with a digital ID through your phone and the eye and this and that. Like, the one thing you have to remember is that absolute power absolutely will be corrupt all the time. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, it's like checkmate, right? And so things are not working, right? Ebola, Hanta, this is not working, this is not working, this is, you know what I mean? And so what's the next thing to throw at you? Okay. Think of these distractions, right? Last week, everybody's been talking about Jay-Z's rhyme at the Roots picnic. I mean, really, who cares? I'm an MC, so I love it and I love hip hop. I care a little bit, whatever. But then at the same grand scheme of like what's going on with our ascension, we're dealing with wars and, children and people dying in the Congo with Ebola and this and that. Like, who cares? Right. And then you have all this race baiting with these cases, right? Carmelo Anthony, and then I guess I missed the whole thing. I guess something happened with Cho, and then you got people, trying to create beef between, blacks and Asians. It's silly. We have to get to a point, you guys, where we're kind of like not dealing with whatever they throw out into the sphere to distract us because it's all trying to divide us, right? And race baiting and trying to mess with the 14th, 13th Amendment or 14th Amendment and the voting rights, right? This is really to kind of provoke and evoke violence and division and hatred. And it's good to see people kind of like, nah, we're not stepping into that arena, right? We're not falling for the okey doke because that's what they want to create real chaos, right? To really get these people out in the streets and just taking people out and stuff, right? ICE and all that foolishness. So Virgo risings. So the last thing I would say for the Leo risings is that there can be a lot of secrets revealed, Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in the seventh house. But there can also be some powerful magnetic energy for them in the marketplace with barter and trade and sales. Remember, the seventh house is where you go shopping, right? For your rice, beans, and meat. But this is like the market. You can buy anything in the market, right? And so that's the seventh house. We have contracts and negotiations, right? Law, the open enemies. Okay. So for Virgo risings, we're dealing with the Leo in the 12th house. Okay. Jupiter Leo in the 12th house for Virgo risings is really nice because we have the Aquarius in the sixth, and this is going to be focusing on your physical and spiritual health. Jupiter in the 12th house in Leo, this can really activate their hidden talents of their creative self-expression. So Virgo risings, right? They're actually very talented with that Leo in the 12th house, but they don't want to necessarily share it with the public. They're so worried and concerned about being perfect. I got to do this perfectly and this and that. But it's like perfection, that's only for God's source creator. So Virgo risings, it's important to tap into your dreams, right? Tap into the spiritual realm. Tap into those hidden talents. The Jupiter can block the hidden enemies, but this can also activate international import, export, and trade and really increase your spiritual gifts. So this is a powerful year with that. And then the Pluto in the sixth house, that really gets into the health and the parasite cleanse. We're dealing with your digestion and pancreas, small, large intestine in the sixth house, your work daily routine. Pluto retrograde, right? Virgo risings could be adopting a pet, saving a dog or a cat or something. Um, You know, this is where they've got to be willing to take those hidden talents and really communicate from their hearts. You know, it's like you don't have to be perfect. And the South Node is still here on the ascendant for Virgos. That switches the node shift right on July 27th. So, Virgo risings, this is the time to communicate from your heart and share and teach. You're going to get a lot. If you do the spiritual work, you'll get a lot of information from your dreams. Okay. And that brings a beautiful opportunity for, and as you can see, the nodes, wow, yeah, they're down to zero now. So that's crazy that it's literally going to be from June 30th to July 27th at 0 degrees. And that's also the Pisces North Node. Okay. So, you know, we do have eclipses coming up August 12th, right? That's going to be the Leo new, I think it's the Leo new moon. And then August 26th, closing out the Pisces Virgo axis, you will have the Pisces full moon lunar eclipse. Okay. And then, next year we'll get into full Aquarius. And this is what the nodes do, right? They kind of intermix a little as they switch. And so this will be really fascinating. And remember, the nodes are there for 18 months. So people have the nodal return every like 18 and a half years. So this is going to be a powerful thing. And obviously, Virgo risings, the Jupiter 12th house, we've got to make sure we're not eating in the bedroom, taking care of the gut health and all that stuff. But to me, it's about really embracing that abundance and maybe even becoming the spiritual guru shaman yourself, Virgo risings. Okay. So the Libra risings. Okay. So we got a couple of folks with people with that here. And the Jupiter's in the 11th house. This is this is a gift for Libra risings, okay? Because having the Jupiter and Leo in the 11th, opposing the Pluto Aquarius fifth, they can have some financial gains, right, to help transform or change their children's lives. They can also get involved with things over the internet, groups and organizations. And this may be where Libra risings decide that they want to get into politics. They can also, especially ladies, find a husband over the internet, right? We have meetup groups, organizations. They start a nonprofit. But remember, this is your hopes, dreams, and wishes. Houses 3, 6, 10, and 11 get better over time. For Libra risings, this may be the time, especially if they're, um, let's say, 58 or 46, or maybe even 34, where it's activating the annual perfection house too, and they really they gain wealth through their social network or through the groups and organizations or the long-term investments in the stock market. So with that Pluto fifth house, Libra risings may be like, you know what, it's time. I got to get some XLM and XRP, a little bit of Ethereum, maybe some Bitcoin, maybe, Pluto here, maybe a little lottery scratch off. I don't think the major lotteries, I think those are probably fixed, but those scratch offs where you can win 20 to $100. Yeah, Jupiter or Pluto in the fifth house, it could be a time to, maybe do something like that. But this can really be, what are you teaching to your children about their health, about AI, about technology, right? Or helping to heal or prevent some childhood wounds. Okay. And that means for the Libra risings, the Taurus is, the Chiron wounds in eighth house with the Taurus, and so there's an emphasis on really connecting with those crystals and herbs. Because remember, the eighth house is not just the hidden occult knowledge, it's also what's hidden underground, right? Gold is in the 11th house, but the eighth house, we have the minerals, the gems, ancient oils like doTERRA, the crystals. We're also dealing with oil and gas, right? So this is where maybe they're getting with Taurus the fruit smoothies, the ashwagandha, the sea moss, the burdock root, right? Having those crystals, the amethyst, the lapis lazuli. And that's the thing with Chiron and Taurus, you want to definitely get those blue crystals, especially if you have that activates the throat chakra. There's another one that's even really good too, and somebody told me about it. I can't remember. I think Jazz had told me about it. It's another blue crystal that activates the throat chakra, even supposedly better than the lapis lazuli. I have this one, and I enjoy the lapis lazuli. But so Libra risings, I think that they've got to be willing to connect with groups and organizations. And like I said, they could literally find love or, a husband over the internet. But there can be a lot of blessings going for the political run or the long-term investments as well. This is the full year. That's the benefit of this transit, right? It's not so long like Saturn or crazy long like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, but a full year, you can see a lot. You can be dedicated to paying attention to that Jupiter and Leo for the year and seeing how you embrace the spotlight, right? How you communicate and express from your heart, right? If we all just did that creative stuff 30 minutes a day, maybe that in itself can make things better for us in terms of our productivity. So Libra risings, they really can have some positive thing. Now you always got to look at what planets you have there, because right, if you're a boomer and you have Pluto, Leo, the Jupiter, this could also expand, negative attention to you, or Pluto is where we can see the narcissist, or we could see the lies that person's been keeping. So Libra risings have to be careful especially if they're Pluto Leo generation, the boomers, okay? And that's, something to consider too. Because remember with Pluto and Aquarius, that's why as Capricorn was ending, we had the Me Too, and then Pluto Aquarius, the Epstein and this and that. The frequency on the planet, the lies cannot hold up anymore. So more truth is just going to keep spilling out and spilling out through now to 2044. That now the thing is, right, what good is it when there's no consequences? Now we have to think that eventually, there'll be consequences for those people, at least in the spiritual realm. You can't have consequences when the people in power are the ones doing all the dirt. They're not going to arrest themselves. I mean, we'd have to, come together as the citizens and be like, listen, we're done. And that's the thing that we have to realize too. We have the real power with our attention, right? That's why I say don't, going out to protest in the streets, those days are over. That's not going to do anything for you. You protest spiritually and you protest with your dollar bills. That's what they feel. And I do not consent. I do not comply. And we should be spiritually and energetically saying that all the time anyway, right? Putting a bubble of white, golden, violet, purple light over us for protection. I do not consent, to anybody sending me any negative energies. That's important because the 11th house is the arena. It's crowds of people. So Jupiter here, somebody could be all like, oh, I'm connecting with this one and this one. Not everybody's got the best intentions for you. Some of the closest people to you can be your biggest haters behind your back and jealous ones, whether it's a cousin, a sibling, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a niece, a nephew, lifetime friend. You have no idea, and that's what sometimes is so hard and sad. That's why I created the hater chart, looking at the 6th house, the 12th house, looking at certain planets, looking at the 11th house, because here we can have the fake friends. So it's just something to be aware of, right? I like to focus on the positive, but we have to be prepared to handle and deal with the negative. So just remember that with the Jupiter here, because it depends on what you have, Libra risings in Leo in the 11th house as well, okay, or any negative aspects to it. So Scorpio risings, I know we got people in the replay and myself, This is nice. I mean, you can't lie that this is a good time for Scorpio and Leo risings and Cancer risings with the Jupiter in money houses or career houses. This is the 10th house, the legacy, the reputation, the public image. Scorpio risings, Jupiter, right? This is out in public, workplace, work environment, right? The book is going off to the printer. So Jupiter, Leo, right? And Jupiter's connected to publishing, ninth house. This is really good. The full moon, and that's my moon. Okay. So for me, this is really a great chart and energy coming off that full moon in the third house. But for Scorpio risings, you've got to step into really communicating from your heart. You've got to be the regal king and queen out in public. You need to step into your inner authority and not be afraid to embrace the spotlight. Scorpio rising, some of them can be very private. They rather work for themselves. Sometimes they like to work quietly behind the scenes. They don't like the attention. It depends on your individual chart. But Scorpio risings, no matter where they go, they get attention just because of the mystery, right, of the ascendant, the aura. Scorpio risings, they're hard to really read, and people feel naked around them because of that Mars Pluto, right? I told you, Scorpio risings, it's like I walk around with an MRI machine. When I meet people in person, right, I can see right through them. So, I know who people are, and sometimes, with Scorpio risings, people can be crazily drawn to you magnetically or very fearful and repelled, and be like, oh, well, I'm not messing with him. I'm not messing with her, There's an intensity. So this Jupiter and then the Pluto in the fourth and then the Chiron, there could be some woundings around the marketplace, right? Money, charging the right price, right? And I had Jazz tell me, Eric, you got to raise your prices too low. I'm like, okay, but it's hard when you're a Virgo. Of course, right? I support my family and this and that, but as a Virgo, it's like my first mantra is really to help people. Right? I want everyone to know this ancient wisdom and knowledge. Like if I knew this in my 20s, oh my God, I'd be dangerous. You know what I mean? Like, but in a good way. And that's what I always tell you guys, right? We need to know this for good because the people in power, they know it and use it for bad. Everything you see in public is orchestrated through astrology, numerology, and gematria. April 25th, when Uranus went to Gemini and the moon was at 29 degrees in Leo, that's when they had that incident at the White House at the hotel with the fake, this person coming in trying to do things. That's not an accident. They knew Uranus was entering Gemini. And they probably also knew, and then you see him peering behind the curtain. If it was a real threat, come on, they wouldn't have him still be around there to even be able to do that. But that moon at 29 degrees on his ascendant, but they do these things, right? Oh, your ratings are low. We got to do something to get, just like the first one that boosted his win to the White House out there in Butler. Oh, it's the first time CNN ever covered one of his things, and they happen to be there for that event, and the media and this and that, and how's his ear looking now? So, I mean, we just have to have real discernment because this type of stuff happens all the time, and that's where you have to also be mindful that there could be very easily from a frenemy, a Pearl Harbor event in July or August too. That's why I'm not lying to you. We talked about it last night, right? June, we got to build up our spiritual muscles. And Scorpio risings, it's important for them too, because with the Pluto in the fourth house, there's a lot of things about the foundation, healing those traumas from their childhood, really going through and healing them, right? I've already forgiven myself, my mother, my father. But Scorpio risings, that's something that needs to happen to purify and cleanse the emotional mind. But that Jupiter in the 10th house, it's you've got to be out there in public, being generous, getting the money, sharing your wisdom, beliefs, and philosophies, and stepping into the spotlight. You know, one thing about Jupiter and Leo, remember Jupiter and Sun are friends. That's the day team in sect in astrology, right? SECT, right? Above the horizon line, Sun, Jupiter, Mars. They're on the same team. But when the Sun is above the ascendant, you're an extrovert. Jupiter's the great benefic, Mars is the great malefic. Below, when the Sun, if your Sun is in the second through the sixth house or below the ascendant line, you're an introvert. And this is the night squad, Moon, Venus, Saturn. So then Venus becomes the greater benefic and Saturn the greater malefic. Okay. So that's important to know as well. So I think Scorpio risings, they're gonna have to get out of there. Don't look at me, or I'm private, and really embrace the attention, because they're gonna get the attention whether they want it or not. Jupiter, Leo, 10th house. Yeah. So I mean, I can't even. I mean, this is where they may come out with. I think they already did something at Paisley Park, and they may come out with like we had the Michael biopic. They may do a new. Obviously, Purple Rain was a very early bio. But that really, what I mean. So like, there may be a Prince biopic that comes out within this year. Look for that.
About the new album as well for that, since you said that.
Oh, are they talking about a new album?
Yeah, for Prince, they went into his vault. They said they're going to try to do like 10 new tracks. So you already know that had like a little MJ influence on that with his estate.
Okay. See, and this is what's so interesting, because I was thinking, well, why now with Michael? And it was the Virgo South Node, Pisces North Node. So South Node, things coming up from the past, and he's a Virgo, right? And so and he's still dominating the charts. So yeah, and it's so funny because then I think in some ways that's why I wanted to do Prince's chart now, because I know it's coming. So that Jupiter, and he's the Gemini, and Uranus is in Gemini. So like, boom, Prince will be suddenly back. You know what I mean? So then you'll have like the next like year or two, Michael and Prince dominating the charts like they're alive again in the 80s. I mean, that's beautiful. That's wow. Well, you know what, Cephas, this is what's so fascinating. So I have a personal connection to Prince. A woman that I used to babysit her children in college, she used to date him. She met him in a hotel in Paris over a game of chess. Her name was Elizabeth, and this was around the Raspberry Beret times. And she told me that, and it was so crazy because like I actually heard his voice on the answer machine. I got chills. I was like, oh my God, like, okay, she ain't lying. Like he called and left a message or whatever, and I was there babysitting and stuff. And so, she told me that number one, 10 songs, he's got thousands of songs in his catalog that are unreleased. He would wake up in the middle of the night and play classical music, jazz music, and compose stuff. I mean, he played with like what, 18 different instruments. It was brilliant, right? But she said he created the character of Prince because he didn't really want people, true Gemini style, right? Didn't want people to truly know who he was. And so, but he felt that the classical and jazz, that his fans wouldn't understand it because they just knew him as the pop and R&B guy. And so, the R&B and pop guy. So yeah, they could release Prince albums for years. For years. And plus, he would record his jam sessions. He would have just people come over to his
This
house.
list.
Yeah, yeah. Have listen sessions, but like even like just like jams. There was a CD store in Atlanta that I went to in the 90s, and they would have like exclusive stuff. And there they had oh my God, what was it? They had exclusive stuff from Prince's home that I guess he gave to them from Paisley Park, and like a whole city of just like ballads and stuff. Like, but yeah, there's this one store in Atlanta. I forgot the name, but it was incredible though. I never seen a CD store like that in my life. It was in Atlanta, and I went down there, and it was crazy. So yeah, so this could happen for Scorpio risings and Prince. So Sag, now we got Chantel. So with the Sag risings, right, that Capricorn full moon's in the second house, but the Jupiter Leo is up here in the ninth house. Okay, the Pluto in the third. So this is really a time for Sag risings and for you, Chantel, to kind of really travel this year, to maybe take some different classes or courses, maybe going back to school, master's, PhD, or to be the mentor yourself and teach something. Maybe you're teaching over the internet a gardening class, right? Or how to grow your own food or something like that. But maybe it's time that you write an ebook or write a book, right? About, compost and gardening and food and, food for health and all these different things. The Jupiter ninth house for the Sag risings is really just like it's powerful, right? Because, Jupiter is associated with the ninth house, even though the planetary joy is in the 11th house, which is, like I said, so great for the Libra risings. But this is just a beautiful energy. And then, you got to think about the Chiron wound, Taurus sixth house. So that actually is not only speaking to the throat chakra, right? Because the T square pointing at the sixth from the third and the ninth is talking about to the health and work and daily routine. So Taurus is calm, smooth operators, practical, pragmatic, very prudent with their funds. But we're talking about the health and eating, right? So for the Sag risings, Capricorn, second house, earth signs, fruits and veggies. Okay. So that's, really important. And then also driving slow, right? Chiron's here, emotional, physical, spiritual wounds, just like Uranus was there for the last 7 years. And by any chance, since 2018, did you have any incidents with your car or car accidents or speeding tickets?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. For
No.
2018. Okay. So just be mindful with the Chiron there, though, right? This is really tapping into your five senses, activating the throat chakra, right? That Jupiter in the ninth, it's like you are the teacher, you are the guru. And so you have to embrace that, right? You got to step into the stage. Are you thinking of any trips this summer or over the next year?
I am. I'm taking a couple of trips, and I've been having the desire to just travel more
Yeah.
lately too.
Okay. Yeah. And that's beautiful. I mean, in June 30th will really activate that. You'll be like, oh, I gotta go. Like, and it'll be a strong pull, but make sure on those trips you're vibrating from your heart chakra, but you're teaching and learning. Okay. That's the one thing about the ninth house. It's 50 miles further from home, but with Jupiter there, there's something, you can meet a guru, you can tap into connecting with shamans, but you can become, right? And it's the teacher, preacher, professor, but it's also financial abundance. It's the law. So, this is just great for travels, but it's also great for publishing. Okay. And so Sag risings have to remember too, with the full moon on the second house, there's something that, ironically, it's not trining the Chiron because the Capricorn moon's at 11 degrees, but it's really speaking to the legacy, your speech, how you earn money. What are you building? Sag risings. This full moon is talking about what is it that you're building? And maybe you're building family. You know what I mean? Building up something new, right? Because something's ending, right? The Capricorn moon in the second house, something is ending. And so then that means something new is going to be built. Okay. So that's really powerful. And that Jupiter in the ninth, I think, is really going to be that's really nice. You know what I mean? And so have you thought about any publishing or an ebook or any writing?
I have. I
Good,
absolutely have.
good.
Yeah. But then I start doubting myself. I'm like, okay, what do I
No, no,
talk about?
no, 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 no. Come on now. We can't get into that doubting. You get in the mirror, those positive affirmations. Chantel is
I know.
there's nothing to doubt, okay? And
Thank you.
remember, as we speak it, right? Remember universal law, right? Bible, Torah, Quran, the word is life. That's why you get in the mirror, brush your teeth with the opposite hand. That activates the present conscious mind. We got to get out of the subconscious programming, right? Any of us are lucky that we could keep or take 10, 15, 20% of things we learned from our childhood and still have it to this day. Most of it we got to unlearn. Most of it was lies, brainwashing, programming, BS. They lied to us about everything. Financial system, school system, medical system, lie, 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 lie. It's just hard for us as human beings, right? I wrote this in my relationship program, Elevate to Love, right? The first floor is unlearn. We've got to unlearn. You've been programmed. Oh, what's a man? What's a woman? What's this? What's that? What's, you know what I mean? Everything, education, school, and all the truth is coming up, and we're seeing how we've been deceived. So then we only use our conscious mind 8 to 10% of the day. So we've got to tap into that, and we do that in the mirror. Okay. And 90 days, create the new habit. Get in that mirror. You wash your face, brush your teeth at least twice a day in the morning and night. Do that. Positive affirmations. Chantel is a great author, a great mother, a great businesswoman, right? All these different things. If you're not even feeling it, you say it anyway. You fake it till you make it, right? The Chiron wound in Taurus, we have got to heal that. That T square, ninth to third house, is pointing at the sixth house for your work and health and daily routine. It is healthy for you to communicate from your throat chakra, from your heart, positively about yourself every single day. Bing bong, right there in the chart. So, come on, we just gotta, you know what I mean? We gotta do that. And you're worth it. Taurus, Chiron, self-worth, values, tapping into those senses. Okay. It's really, really crucial. And you're already grounding and earthing in nature because you're always one with nature, because you're always growing and dealing with your garden. And that's beautiful. But use that energy. Talk to the trees and the plants. So a woman on Instagram the other day, she was like, I know people may think I'm crazy, but I know the energy's changing, but I've been talking to flowers for 20 years. And I was like, oh, I believe that. Did you know they did research that, how like when we're away and we come home, we get like within a mile, I think, of our house, our dogs and cats and everything, the animals can sense us returning home, but so can the plants. Your plants, they perk up a little bit when you're returning back home. That's powerful. So we have to know the trees, the mycelium network, the plants, they have consciousness. You can talk to the tree and tell the tree, your problems and issues and ask it for wisdom and knowledge. All right. So Capricorn risings. Okay. So now that's you, right, Tony? So that's you. Capricorn risings. And I got some kids with that. So we're dealing, you got the Aquarius in the second and the Jupiter in the eighth. Okay. This is really nice because this is your fiance's resources, right? So that's good. He's gonna pay for that wedding and all that good stuff. But the Jupiter in eighth house is nice, right? This is you receiving inheritance or back taxes from the IRS or just other people's money. But this is important for you to really connect with the crystals and the herbs and the esoteric occult knowledge, right? So you said you've been studying astrology for years. Well, maybe now you're like, hey, you know what? I want to go further. Eric, yeah, I want to really learn this, and maybe I'll take a class with you one-on-one, or when you start your class again in January, maybe I'll sign up for it, or maybe I want to learn numerology or human design. Eric, do you recommend anybody? And I'll say, oh yeah, study with Queen Bee or do this and that. Jupiter eighth house, this is where your financial abundance. And remember, for Capricorn risings, the Leo eighth house and the husband, Leo sun moon risings will be physically or sexually attracted to Capricorn risings. But with the Jupiter in eighth house, this can bring in all those things in terms of you expanding your knowledge about the occult, secret societies. And you may also want to go down more rabbit holes this year. to really learn about that stuff. You may decide, you know what, I'm really tapping into this crystal magic. Like I want to use the crystals and put them out for the full moons, right? And you could do that on the 29th in the morning, or the 20, even the night of the 28th, to put those crystals out. And maybe I keep the crystals in the moon water out um until the 30th, until that morning. Especially because, it's only like it's really only like 5, 6 hours, this Jupiter entering Leo after the full moon and the Mercury retrograde. It's a really powerful portal. You hear people about these manifesting portals. Well, this is one of them. From the 29th to the 30th, and you can start on the 28th, like really get into the moon water, blue glass jar or glass jar, your crystals out. What are you releasing? Because on full moons, things are culminating, coming to an end. It's illuminating something in our lives, right? So for Capricorn risings, bing bong, that's on your ascendant, right? So this is where we got to really tap into our own auras and own energies. Remember, when the moon's on your ascendant, right? That can definitely affect, water weight in the body, even though it's an earth sign. It's more so for the water ascendants, but when the moon's there, the moon is water. And it's also going to bring in the memories, right, of childhood, right? And then this Jupiter eighth house, this can bring in a lot of things where it's affecting how you're earning money. Maybe with the Pluto Aquarius, you're transforming things around your career. Tone, what do you do for work?
I'm actually a stay-at-home mom now.
Oh, cool. Okay. So then this is really an emphasis on what? The family values, right? With the Aquarius Pluto here, it can be more intentional about health for you and the kids, right? And your fiance, right? Making sure you're trying to get more organic and vegan, high vibrational foods, high vibrational clothing to activate the five senses. We don't need the synthetics, the polyester, the rayon, all that crap, right? We need cotton, organic cotton, linen, and wool, things like that, connecting with the crystals. So this is really powerful. But with the Pluto retrograde, there's definitely some things that the Jupiter will point at that you've got to, still. I don't listen. I tell people all the time, I don't care how much work of introspection and shadow work we've done. There's always something that needs to be uncovered. I had done all this work on, 6 years old and this and that. And then I went to the spiritual healer, and she was incredible. She could literally, I guess, talk to the cells in your body. She passed away, and she was just brilliant. I had her on my podcast a couple of years back, but she said to me right away, "Eric, what happened to you at 7 years old?" And I was like, I focused on 6. My father was murdered when I was 6, but when I was 7, I had another trauma because my uncle shot my mother and left her for dead, and my mom survived. But like, it was really traumatic because they didn't know if my mom was going to survive. So at 7 years old, they took and my sister was 12. They took us to the hospital to see my mom. But that was scary because my mom couldn't talk and her head was all bandaged up, but they just, it was touch and go. So like for years, I was like, hospitals, no, 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 no. You know what I mean? And so I still had to go back and do that healing and that work. And then she said, "Oh, well, what happened at 15 and what happened at this age?" And I'm like, "Dad, go on." So I only say all that to say is that you guys don't think you're a finished work, right? We can always heal. We can always get in the nooks and crannies. The key is the forgiveness, right? And so the second house is your family values, your savings, your assets, more connected to the father. But there are still, I'm sure, childhood wounds, even in terms of how our parents spoke to us, and listen, obviously some people's parents were not nice and really mean parents, but even the best intending parents, there's going to be wounds from childhood. No human comes out of childhood from 0 to 18 unscathed. Because, that's why I say as a parent, you got to look at your child's chart. Because when you look at their chart, you see their sun and moon. You're seeing like the Charlie Brown Peanuts, like wah, wah, wah. You're seeing how they perceive you. You may be intending one thing as a mom and nurturing and this and that. And then all of a sudden in their chart, they got, Mars squaring their moon and this and that. And you're like, oh, wow. And they're receiving your message as an irritation, or they're receiving your message as like harsh. You know what I mean? And so there's just so much to learn, right? And so we all, and it's the same thing with our parents, right? I tell people all the time, like seeing your parents' chart, that's an eye opener for you because you're like, oh my gosh, okay, so that you could see who they really were, but maybe they weren't nurturing and caring because of what they experienced, their traumas. You know what I mean? So it's a full circle thing. And so I always encourage people. One of my greatest things that I remember doing, I had a client years ago, and both her parents had passed away. And I did chart readings on both her parents. And she was like, Eric, thank you. You have no idea. Like now I get who I am and who they were. You know what I mean? Like it's powerful. So just always, and sometimes, you may not have the birth time, but I do rectification and sometimes I can figure that out, even if they've passed away, just as long as you know a lot of details about that life story, siblings, marriages, kids, career. And usually that's enough for me to figure it out. Okay. So always be open to learning and considering that as well. But the other thing that I would say for you, Tone, and just in general for the Capricorn risings, you know, with the Saturn in Aries in the fourth house in Neptune, it's very important that you're maintaining and taking care of and looking out for the roof in the home, and then the water, the plumbing. Have you had any issues, Tone, since Saturn and Neptune came in Aries with the roof or any water issues?
There was a leak yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that will definitely be cleared up by June 30th, but just pay attention to those things because that's a real thing. I went through it with Saturn was in Aquarius with the roof and like, oh my God. So just, check the toilets, the plumbing under the sink, just be diligent, but just be aware because those are real things that can come up for Cap risings. And the Saturn's there to 2028. And unfortunately, I mean, chances are you won't experience that much, but the Neptune is there to 2039. So it's just, you got to be on leak alert to 2039, which is a long time. But I think the way to work with that is to get a water feature in the home. And this is for all Capricorn risings, where you can, you don't have to get the crazy fancy ones with the music and the lights, but just for you to be able to hear and see water flowing, that activates the water because Aries is fire, so it's dry and hot. So the water, Neptune being there, if you get a water feature, not only that will enhance your spiritual practice, but it will also just calm down the emotional mind. Okay. And you could have it in the bedroom, or if you have a home office, the water feature would be really great for you. Okay. So any other questions for you before we go to the Aquarius risings? And just remember, I think it's really good because with the Jupiter in eighth house, and you're a stay-at-home mom, that's going to really activate you exploring to learn more and go deeper with the esoteric occult knowledge, which will only be a benefit to your marriage, your fiance, and your kids. Okay. So
Okay.
definitely embrace that. Aquarius risings. So, this is, Pluto's on the ascendant. You're dealing with that and the Jupiter in the seventh house. Aquarius risings with the healing of the shadow work and the self-love. This may be a year where Aquarius risings are getting married, or they are expanding their business. Maybe they're creating they could literally be remodeling their kitchens. There could be situations where, their second child or the first child gets a promotion at their job, and their second child is continuing or doing well with their education. That's the second house, the maternal grandmother. Maybe there's some information about, the maternal grandmother in the lineage. But I think also this is definitely, really good for the relationships and marriages and even business partnerships and increasing the wealth. Okay. But it's about embracing things from the heart chakra. That's the thing that with Jupiter Leo, everything's about the creative self-expression in the heart. If it's not from the heart, don't learn it, don't teach it, don't even speak it. You know what I mean? You really want to be authentic, authenticity, because it's opposing the Pluto. So this is like it's going to only tap in to the authenticity more and more. Okay. So, and the other thing for Aquarius risings, the moon, full moon in the 12th house, it could be really making sure you're having healthy habits, and maybe it's about bringing a plant into the bedroom and getting into a good nighttime routine and practice. Put the work behind you and just really relax in the bedroom. Now, Pisces risings, um, we're really dealing with this in the sixth house, Jupiter Leo, right? MJ has this. And so, this is powerful because for your work and daily routine, you know, they may do a part two of that Michael movie. And with Jupiter and Leo, that could be a thing too, where Prince and Michael are battling from the other side, where Prince comes out with a song or album or movie, and then all of a sudden, because they only did, I think in the Michael movie, they only went up to what, victory or bad. I forgot. They didn't go so far. So I don't know if they're planning a part two of it. You just don't know, right? And all these different things because the way his records are selling again. I mean, whether it's the family or the lawyers, they may be like, okay, let's ride this wave and let's do something else. And that would activate the Jupiter Leo in the sixth house. Pisces risings, this is really a nice time where you could definitely really focus on and improve your health. So hips and thighs, squatting. I always say for women after age 40, should be squatting every day, light weights, or at least 3 to 4 times a week. Best days to exercise, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Don't work out on Mondays and Fridays. You want to add 2 more days, Wednesday and Sunday, Mercury and the sun. Monday's the moon. That's why nobody wants to go to work on Mondays. It's the day of introspection, emotions, feelings, sensitivities. Friday is date night, finance, money, chocolate. So, have fun, eat your sweets on a Friday. And, this Monday and Friday, when you work with the planetary energies, you will get more benefits of the workouts. Tuesday is upper body, Mars, shoulders, bench press. Thursday, squats, leg press, Jupiter, hips and thighs. Saturday, the bones, Saturn. It's also the spiritual day of the Sabbath, but it's machines. So you could do a full body workout. Mercury on Wednesdays, lungs, elliptical, jump rope, running. And then Sunday, any type of exercise outside. Why do you think the NFL plays on Sundays? Although they play other days too. But Sundays is vitality, feeling restored, revitalize the sun. Okay. So Pisces, yeah, this could be adopting a pet, positive things with your work, with your coworkers, even getting a raise or promotion, more responsibility, or teaching classes, learning something. Obviously the Pluto in the sixth house, there's definitely a lot of things to do around the dreams and really reprogramming the subconscious, unconscious mind, getting in that mirror, very important. But really tapping into the spiritual realm. Just remember with all of them, and we're going to get to Aries as we close out, but just, the one thing with the Jupiter there, and it is the general, and we're talking about politicians and entertainers, you could also have a comeback where politicians and entertainers are more secrets are being revealed, especially with the Epstein list with Pluto Aquarius. But you may have some people clapping back and saying, oh, yeah, well, I wasn't ever on the plane, or I never went to the island, like coming out, expressing, trying to clear their name individually. A lot of them have been quiet, mum's the word, probably because a lot of them are really truly guilty. But this is with the Jupiter and Leo, you may have some people getting on the high horse. Not me. I'm not like them. You understand? So that you could see that happening as well, especially with this Mercury retrograde, this Capricorn full moon, right? Legacy, Capricorn, where people are like, no, 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 that's not me. I'm not like them. So just pay attention to that too. And they could be lying, but they may come out and say it. Because remember, you're going to see it, like Leo is literally the entertainers and the politicians, and Jupiter there, but hopefully for the positive, this is where we start to create the foundation of a new film industry, a new music industry, where people don't have to sell their soul and sacrifice family members and be raped and all this foolishness. That's got to stop, right? And that's where we're headed to with the new vibration and the ascension of the fifth dimension. Okay. So that's what we got to focus on, is the love and light and the positivity. Now, the Aries risings, okay? And also for Pisces risings, I want to just say this real quick, because I know we got some watching on the replay. That Capricorn moon in the 11th house, there's something about the internet or groups and organizations that's, really important at this time, whether it's a nonprofit or you connecting. Because remember, even in a transit, in our personal lives, the moon is ourselves. But let's say in a mundane chart, the moon is the citizens, it's the people, right? If you're looking at an election chart, or if you're just looking at what's going on in the political sphere, the moon is going to be the citizens. It's us, the people. Okay. And so the people for Pisces risings, the people are looking at how they can extend their wealth, achieve their hopes and dreams. And maybe the people are like, hey, no more am I relying on the politicians, right? That's coming to an end. Okay. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more too. I think you're going to see a lot, especially in this country, a lot more people saying, you know what, take my rights to vote away. I don't care. I'm not voting. I want a new system. This system, what am I voting for? Blue, red, it doesn't, if you only got two choices, that means you have no choice. The fact that election day is not on a weekend or 2 days, and it's on a Tuesday in November when people work 2, 3 jobs in this freaking country tells you that they don't really care about your vote anyway. That's all you need to know. And the fact that third world countries will have like multiple days of voting and votes on weekends, and we do it on a Tuesday in November, that's comedy. I don't even know how people haven't, thought about that forever, because I always have. That's a joke. And you should have a 3 to 5 party system. And there should not be, funding from corporations and oils. And, it should just be regular from the people funding. Okay. So, I mean, we'll see. Things are going to eventually change. Aries risings. So you already know, right? Cephas, with the Saturn and Neptune on the ascendant, it's thinking before you respond, not being impulsive, tapping into and increasing the spiritual practice. But this Jupiter is in the 5th house. It's just fantastic. This is like going out, dates, meeting people, creative self-expression, everything from the heart. But it's very much about even, a little scratch off. I don't encourage the gambling, but Aries risings, if there's ever a time to do some gambling or do a scratch off, I don't know if they had that in Italy, Cephas, but man, you just may win a free pizza somewhere, like something. But Jupiter, you're like, oh, you're the 100th person to come into our pizzeria. Cephas, come on, sit down. You have a whole pie for yourself. People are like, oh my God, but when you're willing to, go ahead, what? Oh, I thought you were saying something. Okay,
Oh, no, that wasn't me. That wasn't me.
Okay, that's okay. But when you're willing to, step out, right, from your heart, this is where you're going to find, and this also could be, remember, speculative gains. Maybe you turn a hobby, right, into a little side hustle. Maybe you're over there in Italy and you're like, teaching them some American stuff or this. I mean, who knows? Maybe you start teaching English classes while you're in Italy, right? Jupiter, Leo, 5th house. It's perfectly set up for your fun, your pleasure, dates, enjoyment, but just really activating that heart chakra. You know what I mean? And I don't even know. I mean, this is like day trading and crypto. I don't know over there, their stock market and how they do investings, but you could get into international stuff too with the Pluto Aquarius. So this is a beautiful time. And, that full moon being in your 10th house, this is and the Cancer Sun in the fourth house, this is really work, career, legacy, home life, right? So the fact that you just moved, you are really changing your whole energy. So that's really powerful. And you're going to see that and feel that in terms of working for the government and the full moon. It's illuminating something here in the 10th house. You know what I mean? And, in some ways, the Jupiter fifth house, some sort of recognition, right? For how or what you share when you communicate from your heart. So that's important for all Aries risings to know. And remember what I said, Aries risings, with the children, take the precautions if we're not trying to make no babies, because with Jupiter transits the fifth house, I mean, I bet you in for this full year, if we were to, have the astrology of other people, I bet you over 60 to 65% of the pregnancies will be coming from Aries risings or people who have a Leo Sun Moon rising too. I would put my chips on that one big time because like it's really a thing. Right? And so, but I think it's really great and just the with the Neptune on the ascendant, you're already going to be feeling more creative. So embrace that. And that trine, Jupiter to Neptune trine, it's like whatever you want to dream. And this is for everybody, every rising sign, even with this Taurus. Just remember, you look at those houses wherever the Jupiter Leo is, and then look where it's trining Neptune Aries. But it's asking you to, from your heart, what is it that you've always dreamed of? We've got to stop putting off our vacations, putting off our dream jobs, putting off waiting to have kids or to fall in love. Like this is this chart is really speaking to us as a collective. Jupiter trine Neptune in fire signs, take action, initiate. There's no more like, oh, well, maybe next year or I'll think about it. No, live life now, embrace the fun now, right? Expect and manifest the good things happening now. And I would do on the 30th, you guys, I would do something with some candles. You can, get in the bathtub, right? It's Cancer season, the Capricorn full moon, and put the candles around the bathtub and just, manifest. You never tell the universe that you want anything. You're thanking it with gratitude. I am statements. I know, I receive, but get those candles. Jupiter Leo, a lot of manifesting with candles this year. Okay, to the summer of 2027. Like I said, I think Jupiter Virgo's probably it's like June 29th or July 1st, somewhere in there. Okay. So really take advantage of that. And, this trine is definitely not to be one to just be like Netflix and chill it and be lazy. This is the one to like, Leo and Aries, they're initiating. They're not, you know what I mean? It's fire. Fire is not sitting still. The fixed fire is still because it's like confident, like, I don't have to do anything. Look at me. I'm the sun. I'm Leo. I'm fixed fire, right? I shine bright and you're going to notice me. The Neptune in Aries is initiating. So it's like when you initiate through your creative self-expression, you're going to make magic happen. Okay. So that's really big, especially with the Neptune on the ascendant for Aries risings, but really for anybody, any rising sign. I want you guys to walk in to the abundance, activating your creative self-expression through your heart chakra, being distinguished, being above reproach, being above the crowd, above the lies, right? We're not in a time for us to, like, I mean, for me personally, Scorpio rising and a Virgo, I hate liars, but just in general, and I tell my kids, like, I tell the kids, you don't see, I don't lie to mommy. I don't lie to you kids. Don't lie to me. I may not like what you did, but you tell me the truth. We good. Just don't lie. Okay. And so, but I encourage everyone watching this on the replay and you guys here, Pluto Aquarius, it's just there's going to be karmic retribution for those that have been dealing in the lies and the sins. And sometimes it sucks, right? We see like, oh, these people that do so bad to everybody else, doesn't seem like they ever get, their comeuppance, or they get their retribution or whatever, but they will. Don't you worry. You may not see it, but they do. And if they don't get it here, they get it in the afterlife or in the spiritual realm. Okay. Now I know some people will be like, but Eric, what if they're fallen angels and they just kind of recycle and they form and shapeshift into a new character and this and that and da 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 da. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know what to say about that. The only thing I could say is that I don't know. Is that hell on earth to be here forever? Is it fun? I don't know. Like, I mean, to me, I don't know. Like when you think about like vampires and all that stuff, that's a deeper concept to pontificate about and question and to debate, but you guys could see some of these accounts on Instagram when they talk about the fallen angels and they talk about celebrities that look just like politicians from the 15 and or 17 or 1800s. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I know the aliens are real. I don't know about the, shape shifting and this and that or whatever. But yeah, I mean, do I believe in shapeshifters? Sure, why not? I said to somebody the other day, and I really mean this. At this point, after 2020 and all that's been going on in this world, and just our spiritual growth and ascension, I mean, could you really not fathom? I could totally fathom looking out my window and seeing Bigfoot dancing with a mermaid. I'd be like, oh, okay, hey Bigfoot, hey mermaid, like nothing would surprise me. You know what I mean? Like
all things are possible.
Yes, sir. I mean, like I can't say that something could not happen or is not real anymore with all the revelations and things. And I want you guys just to be prepared. And this is one of the best little pockets of days that we have for the rest of the year. So really embrace it. Be very intentional. The Mercury retrograde, be introspective. Write a love letter to yourself, about how amazing you are and healing that inner child. Write, do some automatic writing and journaling. Jupiter Leo, write 3 or 5 goals that you want to achieve this year from June 30th to June 30th. What lights your heart up? Go after it. We as a collective, not only do we need to be our true authentic selves, we got to stop playing small. Each one of you is so gifted, so talented, and so amazing. And it's not BS or fluff, right? I've seen your charts, but now you've got to know it. You've got to embrace it and walk into it. Think about how on different dimensions or parallel timelines, your highest self is living the life that sometimes you have flashes and visions and dreams of. So that means it's obtainable. There's an Eric in another parallel timeline that is got a house by the beach that he's swimming in the ocean every day. Or that he's, back home for the New York Knicks parade and he's chilling, whether I can make it there or not. There's another timeline, you know what I mean, where we are living everything that we can visualize and manifest. And that's why it's so important to tap into the dream books. And that's why it's so important to, really get into that mirror. I won't get into the philosophies of like all the stuff with mirrors and stuff, but trust me when I tell you, when you talk lovingly to yourself about yourself in the mirror, you're doing some serious healing there. Okay. So do that. Brush your teeth with the opposite hand, pour in the positive affirmations, and embrace the Jupiter Leo. Jupiter Leo? Come on. You are the celebrity. You are the star. And that's what you're also going to see too, where people are like, forget the celebrities. And you already see it with the influence culture and this and that or whatever. Okay, here's an example of Hollywood. The #1 film last 2 weeks was The Back Room. That was from a YouTuber. It's changing the paradigm of Hollywood, you guys. Nobody cares about them releasing freaking Toy Story 10 and Scary Movie 13 and this movie 14. They have no imagination and creativity because they don't let other people in, and nobody cares about their stories and their same retreads anymore. Bye, you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Nice meeting you today.
Bye.
Bye.